Unaware he owned the company. Signing her $800 million deal, wife poured wine on husband, calling him unworthy to be in her elite circle. What he did next crushed her. Part 2. You're unworthy to be in my elite circle, Hunter. You stink of poverty and failure. Those were the devastating words Olivia Caldwell hurled at her husband before pouring red wine on his face in front of investors, cameras, and 200 guests. She had no idea the man she humiliated owned the very company signing her $800 million deal. What happened next will make you question everything you think you know about love, betrayal, marriage, sacrifice, and revenge. Viewers, what would you do if your wife poured wine on you in front of everyone? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hunter closed the bedroom door behind him. The lock clicked softly, sealing off her sobs in the distance. He crossed to the dresser, the faint morning light cutting across his reflection in the mirror, a calm, cold face in the middle of ruin. He reached for his phone and scrolled to a single name: Private Investigator Reed. Hello? The line connected almost instantly. It's Caldwell, he said quietly. I need you to dig into my wife. Everything. Movements, communication, who she's been meeting, and I want the full video footage from the signing yesterday, every camera angle in that ballroom. Reed's tone sharpened. How deep do you want this? As deep as it goes. There was no hesitation. Understood. Reed took a slow sip of coffee, then set the cup aside and pulled a file from his drawer. We'll file the initial petition and prepare for mediation. Any specific grounds? No grounds yet? Mark nodded, jotting notes. All right. Mark's pen scratched against the page, steady and efficient. We'll file under irreconcilable differences until you decide otherwise. Hunter rose from his seat, buttoning his jacket. Keep it clean. Always do. He left without shaking hands. By the time he returned home in the evening, dusk had crept across the sky, tinting the house in shades of amber. Through the window he saw Olivia moving between the counter and the dining table, sending plates. The scent of roasted chicken, mashed potatoes filled the air. When he stepped inside, she turned quickly, wiping her hands on a towel. You're home. Her voice carried a fragile hope. I made dinner, your favorite. He removed his jacket, hung it neatly by the door, and walked toward the dining table. Everything was arranged perfectly. The meal, the silverware, the bottle of wine they'd once shared on their anniversary. She watched him, waiting for any reaction. He said nothing. Hunter, please, she murmured. You haven't eaten all day. He poured himself a glass of water, drank, and set it down with a soft click that sounded louder than her voice. Then he turned and walked past her toward the stairs. She followed a step, her breath trembling. Hunter, please, talk to me. He stopped midway up the stairs, his tone calm, distant. There's nothing left to say. Her lips parted, but no sound came. He disappeared down the hallway. The house returned to silence. The food cooled untouched. The candles flickered, their flames bending in the quiet air. 2 days later.
His phone buzzed. Reed's name flashed on the screen. Got what you asked for? The investigator said. Where do you want to meet? Same place as before, Hunter replied. The cafe sat on the edge of town, quiet and dimly lit, with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the river. Reed was already there, seated in the far corner, a folder on the table beside his untouched coffee. When Hunter arrived, Reed slid it across. That's everything. Calls, photos, correspondence, hotel records. She's been seeing someone. The same man appears multiple times. Daniel Brooks. You'll recognize him. Hunter flipped the folder open. Olivia at a restaurant laughing. Another in a hotel lobby. A third outside a bar. Daniel's hand on her waist. Dates lined up neatly beneath each photo, starting 6 months after their marriage. She was careful, Reed said, but not careful enough. Hunter closed the folder slowly. Keep this off record. Always. Reed hesitated. You want to know the rest? No. He took the folder, left cash under the saucer, and walked out. By the time he reached Jensen's office, the day had turned gray. He entered without knocking. The lawyer glanced up from his desk. "That quick?" Jensen asked. Hunter placed the folder in front of him. "Everything you'll need." Jensen opened it, brows lifting as he scanned the pages. "Well," he said dryly, "this saves months of procedure." He flipped through the photos one by one, then leaned back. "Even without your trust fund, the prenup you had her sign 5 years ago leaves her with nothing. No claim, no alimony, no division of assets." Hunter's gaze stayed fixed on the window. Jensen smiled faintly. "You still remember that day, don't you?" "She laughed," Hunter said quietly. "Told me it was pointless. You've got nothing anyway." Then she signed it. Jensen tapped a pen against the folder, expression sharpening. "We'll file immediately," he said, "on grounds of infidelity. That's undeniable. And," he glanced up at Hunter, "for assault, given the public humiliation at that signing. The video alone is enough to strengthen both claims." Hunter's eyes didn't flicker. "Do it." "Consider it done," Jensen replied, turning back to his desk. "Do you also want me to include a request for custody of your son?" Hunter's eyes stayed fixed on the folder. "No, not yet." Jensen studied him. "Why not?" Hunter's reply was calm, almost cold. "Until I'm sure the child is mine. There's nothing to fight for." The lawyer nodded slowly, the pen resuming its movement across the page. "Then we'll demand a DNA test when this reaches court." Hunter said nothing. He simply buttoned his jacket and stood, his silence answering everything else. By the time she realizes what's coming, the case will already be in motion. A week passed, quiet and cold. The silence inside the Caldwell home was the kind that didn't fade. It grew roots. Hunter left early every morning and came back late, his words reduced to single syllables, sometimes just nods. Olivia stopped trying to fill the space between them. Her meals went untouched. Even the air in the house felt cautious. That Friday, at exactly 11:30 a.m., the doorbell rang. She wiped her hands on a towel and walked to the door. Standing outside was a man in a black suit holding a small envelope. His face was expressionless, his tone formal. "Mrs. Caldwell?" "Yes." He handed her a clipboard. "Sign here, please." She signed. He gave her the envelope and turned away without a word. No small talk, no explanation. Just a job done. Olivia closed the door, the envelope cold in her hand. She tore the seal open as she walked toward the living room. The paper slid out. Heavy, official, cruelly neat. The first line stopped her heart. Petition for dissolution of marriage, filed by Hunter Caldwell. Her eyes blurred as she read further. The listed causes were short and brutal. Infidelity, assault. She stared at the words until they blurred. Then her gaze caught something near the bottom. No entitlement to alimony or shared assets as per prenuptial agreement. Her knees weakened. She dropped the papers on the couch and sank beside them, the air leaving her chest all at once. He filed. He actually filed. For several minutes she didn't move. Just the ticking clock, the whisper of the air conditioner, the echo of a door closing in her memory. By mid-afternoon she was behind the wheel, driving through downtown like someone chasing an answer. Her hands shook on the steering wheel. When she reached Ethan Morris's office, she barely remembered how she'd gotten there. The receptionist recognized her instantly and ushered her in. Ethan was standing by his desk, sleeves rolled, confidence radiating from him like cologne. She dropped the papers on his desk. He filed for divorce. Ethan opened the envelope, flipping through the pages without expression. His eyes moved fast, scanning like a machine. After a moment, he gave a small nod. "Infidelity and assault," he read out loud, then a short laugh. "Predictable. Men always reach for drama when they're scared." She folded her arms. "He's serious, Ethan." "That's good," Ethan said, still reading. "That means he went first." Her brow furrowed. "Good?" He set the papers down and leaned back. "In family law, the first strike isn't always the strongest. It's just the loudest. Filing first only makes him look like he's the one panicking. You'll look like the wronged wife, the one blindsided. That helps us." Olivia's voice was low. "He's claiming infidelity. There's nothing to prove that." Ethan gave her a small, knowing smile. "There's never proof until someone's forced to show it. Don't worry, we'll handle that. The key is narrative. Right now, he's the man embarrassed in public. You're the wife defending yourself and your child."
The court always leans towards stability. And stability, he said, tapping the papers, looks like you. She watched him, not breathing. "Can we win this?" Ethan smiled faintly, confidence sharp as glass. "Not just win, we'll turn it. You'll get half of everything he owns, businesses, properties, assets, and we'll push for alimony on top. He won't walk away clean." Her shoulders eased slightly, the first hint of air returning to her lungs. He leaned forward. "And the boy, your son, he's your biggest advantage. Custody is a weapon in court. We'll make it clear. If he wants access, he pays. Judges always side with the mother. Emotional well-being, consistency, all that. You'll come out on top. Come." She nodded slowly, her voice quiet. "He won't fight me on that. He's not cruel." Ethan smirked. "You'd be surprised what decent men turn into when they realize they've lost control." Her lips trembled. "Ethan, he said something before about a trust. I don't even know what he meant." He waved a hand dismissively. "Don't worry about that. If it exists, we'll find it. Since he's hiding assets, we'll hit him with marital concealment. That alone could nullify any prenup he thinks will save him." Her voice steadied a little. "So, you really think I'll be fine?" He gave her a reassuring look. "Olivia, I've seen worse. You married the man. That means you're entitled to the life he built. This is America. Courts don't like husbands walking away rich while the wife gets nothing. Just let me do my job." She exhaled slowly, some of the fear slipping from her face. "All right." He closed the folder and pushed it aside. "Good. I'll file a counterclaim by next week. Don't talk to him. Don't respond to anything directly. Every word from now on goes through me." She nodded again. "Thank you, Ethan." He smiled, standing. "That's what you pay me for." When she returned home that evening, the house was silent again. Hunter's car wasn't in the driveway. The same dimmer plates she'd washed that morning sat drying by the sink. She picked up the papers from the couch and set them neatly on the coffee table. For a long while, she just stared at them. Her name, his, the signatures. It didn't feel real yet, not until she noticed the ink from her trembling fingers smudged faintly on the edge of the page, a stain she couldn't erase. Upstairs, thunder rolled faintly in the distance. Somewhere across the city, Hunter was probably finishing another meeting with his lawyer, calm, deliberate, unbothered. But for the first time, Olivia felt the cold certainty of what she had started. The game had changed, and this time, she wasn't the one writing the rules. A month later, the courtroom was silent enough to hear the faint hum of the overhead lights. Morning sunlight filtered through the blinds, striping the polished floor in pale gold. Olivia sat at the plaintiff's table in a tailored gray suit. Her lawyer, Ethan Morris, beside her, projecting the calm confidence of a man certain of victory. She clutched her purse tightly, her fingers cold despite the warmth of the room. Across from her, Hunter sat with quiet composure. His black suit was immaculate, his posture relaxed, his gaze unreadable. Mark Jensen leaned toward him, murmuring something brief and measured. Hunter didn't reply. He didn't need to. The judge entered, an older woman with silver hair pulled back neatly. Everyone rose, then sat. The bailiff's voice echoed. Case number 2768, Hunter Caldwell versus Olivia Caldwell. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Olivia's heart hammered once in her chest. Ethan stood first. His tone was smooth, practiced. Your Honor, this is a case of marital deception and emotional cruelty. My client, Mrs. Olivia Caldwell, entered this marriage in good faith
unaware that her husband concealed substantial assets and holdings from her throughout their relationship. We will demonstrate that Mr. Caldwell intentionally hid his wealth and used that concealment to control and manipulate his wife. We are asking for fair division of assets, alimony, and full custody of their son." The judge nodded slightly, jotting notes. "And the grounds: marital fraud and concealment, Your Honor," Ethan said. "We also ask that the court grant temporary custody of the child to my client pending full review." A murmur rippled through the gallery. Reporters, observers, legal clerks shifting in their seats. Olivia tried to steady her breathing. Ethan's words gave her courage. "We have this," she told herself. The judge turned to the defense table. "Mr. Jensen?" Mark Jensen rose, his expression calm, his tone precise. "Your Honor, my client filed for divorce first on the grounds of infidelity and assault. We have come prepared to substantiate both claims with documented evidence. Furthermore," he continued, opening a leather folder, "we will show that the petitioner's claims of marital fraud are not only false, but impossible, as every asset under my client's name was legally registered under an irrevocable trust 2 years before the marriage. There were no concealed holdings, no deception." Ethan shifted, his smile tightening. "We'll need to see proof of that, counsel." "You will," Jensen said coolly. He opened the first envelope and handed a stack of notarized documents to the clerk, who passed them to the bench. The judge flipped through the pages: official filings, trust registration, dated and sealed. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Mr. Jensen," she said, "this appears legitimate." "It is, Your Honor," Jensen replied. "All assets and businesses were placed in this trust long before the marriage."
Legally, my client does not own any of them directly. He cannot be accused of concealing what he did not control. Ethan stood again. That doesn't change the fact that his wealth benefited their lifestyle during the marriage. Mrs. Caldwell deserves an equitable share. Jensen didn't look at him. My client provided generously during the marriage, by choice, not obligation. But generosity is not ownership. Olivia's chest tightened. Ethan's hand brushed hers beneath the table, a subtle reminder to stay still. Then Jensen lifted the second envelope. "This," he said, "is the prenuptial agreement signed by both parties 5 years ago. Clause 4, Section C. Infidelity forfeits all marital rights and claims to property or financial support." He passed it to the judge. The courtroom was so silent that even the rustle of paper sounded loud. Ethan spoke quickly. "That document was signed under different circumstances. My client had no understanding of she signed it willingly." Jensen interrupted, his tone mild but cutting. "Her signature, her initials on every page, witnessed and notarized." She didn't object. Then the judge glanced at Olivia. "Mrs. Caldwell, did you sign this document?" Olivia swallowed hard. I did. "But no further clarification needed," the judge said, her pen moving steadily. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. His confidence was starting to crack. Jensen opened the final envelope. "And lastly, Your Honor, we have evidence from a licensed investigator documenting the petitioner's extramarital activities with one Mr. Daniel Brooks. Photographs, correspondence, hotel records, and a video file retrieved from surveillance at the Trident Ballroom." He handed the flash drive to the bailiff. The monitor flickered to life. Olivia's blood ran cold. The footage played, her laughing, leaning too close to Daniel, his hand brushing her back. Then the moment that shattered the city's gossip circles. Her face twisted in mockery, her wineglass tipping forward, the red liquid splashing across Hunter's face under chandelier light. Gasps filled the room. Olivia buried her face in her hands. When the video ended, the silence was total. Even Ethan didn't move. Jensen spoke quietly. "Your Honor, this is not a case of a woman deceived. This is a case of a man humiliated publicly and repeatedly. The prenuptial agreement is binding. The trust predates the marriage, and the evidence of infidelity is beyond dispute. In light of that, we request immediate dismissal of all financial and custody claims. Additionally, my client is filing a motion for paternity verification, given that the petitioner's affair began before the child's conception. The judge's pen froze midair. Then she looked at Olivia. Mrs. Caldwell, do you contest that motion? Her lips parted, but no sound came. Ethan stood abruptly. Your Honor, that's unnecessary. It's necessary, the judge said firmly. Given the evidence presented, the court orders DNA verification for the minor child. Until results are returned, all custody and support discussions are suspended. She turned to Hunter. Mr. Caldwell, you'll provide a sample. He nodded once. The gavel struck. This session is adjourned until further notice. Olivia sat frozen as the courtroom emptied. Ethan gathered his files silently. Across the aisle, Hunter arose, buttoned his jacket, and walked toward the exit with Jensen beside him. He didn't look back. She stared after him, her hands trembling, her pulse thundering in her ears. Everything she'd walked in believing that she could win, that he'd crumble, dissolved in front of everyone. Outside, flashes from waiting reporters burst like lightning through the glass doors. Inside, Olivia sat motionless, one hand clutching the edge of the table, the other pressed against her stomach. For the first time since the humiliation began, she realized this wasn't revenge anymore. It was justice, and it was only just beginning. A week later, the courthouse was quieter than usual that morning. Reporters lined the hallway but spoke in whispers, sensing the weight of what was about to unfold. Inside courtroom 4B, the air felt heavy with anticipation, the kind that made even the sound of turning pages seem loud. It had been a week since the first hearing. Olivia sat at the plaintiff's table beside her lawyer, her posture tense, face pale. Her makeup was understated, her composure forced. She had barely slept. Her phone had remained silent for 7 days. Daniel's number unreachable, his apartment empty. He'd vanished without explanation, leaving only the echo of his promises. Across the aisle, Hunter sat calm and centered. He looked like a man who'd already accepted the outcome before walking in. Mark Jensen, his attorney, leaned close and whispered something brief. Hunter nodded once, his eyes forward. The bailiff's voice rang out. All rise! The judge entered. The same woman, dignified. Her tone, firm. Be seated. She looked down at the files before her, then at the sealed brown envelope lying on the bench. This court reconvenes for the continuation of Caldwell versus Caldwell, she began, her voice steady. As agreed during the previous session, both parties submitted DNA samples for verification. The result was delivered to the court under seal this morning.
The sound of Olivia's heartbeat seemed to fill her ears. The judge reached for the envelope, slid it open with a paper knife, and unfolded the documents inside. Her eyes moved across the page, expression unreadable. Then she looked up. The results are conclusive, she said. The minor child in question is not biologically related to Mr. Hunter Caldwell. The words hit like thunder. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. A reporter dropped his pen. Olivia froze, her breath catching, her entire body went still. Ethan Morris leaned forward quickly, whispering, "Stay calm," but his voice lacked conviction. The judge continued, her tone cool and precise. Given these findings, and in accordance with the prenuptial agreement signed by both parties, the court recognizes a breach of marital fidelity and hereby enforces full forfeit of marital rights. Olivia swallowed, the tears rising uninvited. Her lips trembled as she whispered, No, that's not—" The judge's gavel struck once, silencing her. "Mrs. Caldwell, you will remain quiet while the verdict is delivered." Ethan rose from his seat. "Your Honor, if I may—" "You may not," she said sharply. "This court has reviewed all relevant evidence, the irrevocable trust dated prior to the marriage, the prenuptial agreement with signed infidelity clause, and the investigator's documentation confirming an extramarital relationship between Mrs. Caldwell and Mr. Daniel Brooks. Olivia shut her eyes, fighting to breathe. The room seemed to spin around her. The judge lowered her voice. This court finds in favor of the respondent, Mr. Hunter Caldwell. The marriage between Hunter Caldwell and Olivia Caldwell is hereby dissolved. The petitioner forfeits all claims to property, assets, and financial support as stipulated in the signed prenuptial agreement. The court also declares that custody and paternity claims are null, as the minor child is not Mr. Caldwell's biological offspring. She set the papers aside. There will be no appeals on grounds of emotional distress or financial hardship. The law is clear, the evidence indisputable. Her gavel struck again. This case is closed. The courtroom erupted in murmurs, whispers, footsteps, cameras clicking from the back before the bailiff barked for order. Ethan gathered the papers silently, his earlier confidence gone. Olivia didn't move. Her eyes were locked on the floor, her fingers gripping the edge of the table until her knuckles turned white. The sound around her faded until all she could hear was her own breath breaking apart. Across the aisle, Hunter rose. Jensen packed the files with mechanical precision. The two men spoke quietly, their words indistinct but calm. Hunter glanced once toward her. For a second, their eyes met, his gaze steady, expression unreadable. No anger, no gloating, just the cold finality of a man who had finished something irreversible. He buttoned his jacket and turned away. Outside, the flash of cameras burst against the marble steps as Hunter exited the courthouse. Reporters shouted his name, but he didn't stop. Jensen followed closely, shielding him from the noise. He paused at the bottom of the stairs, looked once at the sky, gray, still indifferent, then walked to his car and left. Inside, Olivia remained seated long after the room had emptied. She stared at the official decree before her, the seal of the state, his signature, her name now meaningless beside it. Daniel was gone. Her marriage was gone. Her wealth, her company. All that remained was silence. And in that silence, she finally understood what Hunter had meant that night. You should have thought about that before you threw wine on the man who built your future. Tears slid down her cheeks, slow and soundless. She reached for the decree, her hands trembling, but the paper slipped from her fingers and drifted to the floor. The courtroom door creaked shut behind her, echoing through the empty space. The sound of consequence, closing its case. Viewers, do you think Hunter handled the situation perfectly? What would you do if you were in his shoes? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more interesting and true-to-life stories.